Oh, this is a story I just remembered happening. I remember I was up at the AES show in New York City, and Serban was up there, with me, and he said, "You got to come with this panel discussion. I want you to come with me." And I was like, I don't know. He said, yeah. I got invited, and it's like, me and Jimmy Douglas and Trina Shoemaker and there's a bunch of people, and I think it'd be good for you if you come with me. And I got, I just, sir, but I just don't belong. He said, no, you're coming. I said, all right. So he made me go with him to. It was a recording school up in New York. And I think they had recording schools all over the world, this place. I think the owner was Australian. I forgot what it was. But we went, and they put us all in this one lounge. And I met Jimmy Douglas, and he was really nice. And I met Trina Shoemaker, and there was another young mixer in there too. And the discussion came up of how they were curious on how Serban was getting work done so fast, because Jimmy and Trina was saying, when we get the work in, and then we have to sort out the tracks and then go through it and mix it and then get approvals, and he said how they were just mesmerized with how do you do it? How are you going through the tracks as fast as you're going through? And Serban explained to him that he had a production line kind of thing going on. Serban's partner, John Haynes, when the tracks came in, John would kind of pre-mix the tracks and put them in the order that Serban liked them in. And then they had a big server in their studio. So when they were done with that, he didn't have to move the tracks. The tracks were on the server, and then Serban would call up the tracks from the server and continue mixing with them. And he would mix as far as he wanted to, and then if he didn't hear anything else, he would save it and go to the next track. But he had his production line where, like I said, John pre-mixed, put him in line, and then went to server, and then Serban would call him up from the server. And that was all within the studio complex that they were in. And later on, I don't know if this was going on when we were at this panel discussion, but Serban also came up with a way of mixing through the internet, and the client could hear the mix live while Serban was doing it. So the immediate feedback back and forth was, like I said, immediate. So he didn't have to mix something, send it to them, they download it, they listen to it, then notes were made. And so it made everything even faster. And that was something proprietary that Serban came up with, and he was very secretive about it. And it makes sense, because that got work done really quickly for him. So they were mesmerized with that kind of stuff. And then it was funny because I brought up the fact that all those guys should own some kind of intellectual property in their mixes, because when they do a mix and they send it off as a Pro Tools session, the movements and what plugins they used and how they used it dynamically and all that is also included in the Pro Tools session. So that's intellectual property. They should get paid for that. And boy, I got everybody's attention when I started talking that way. They were, how would that work? And Jimmy Douglas was, explain that to me. And I explained it, all to him. And Serban agreed with me too. He said, yeah, it makes sense, because we're doing all this work, and then we don't just give them the audio tracks. We give them the whole session, and they can see what's going on. So that was a kind of interesting thing. The other thing that was interesting, Jimmy Douglas, every time I would see him after that, I would say, hey, Jimmy, how you doing? And he would stare at me like he didn't know who I was. I go, I'm Serban's friend. He'd go, oh, yeah. And I even sold Jimmy some stuff. He needed some TT patch base and some patch cables. And I sold him a bunch of not a bunch, a few things. And I had to remind him who I was every time. And I don't know, these guys, I guess they have so much going on through their mind. But that was a thing that Serban pulled me into, made me sit with him, and I think it was good for me. He would always he always does. He's looking out for the best, and that's how that whole thing came together. I don't know. There must be a recording of that someplace, but it must be really interesting. Okay.